Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaha Purnahudachyate Purnahasya Purnamadahya Purnamavaha Vashishyate Shanti Shanti Shanti.
This meditation retreat I entitled Reality Reexamined, basically the non-dual experience. So I'd like to say a few words about that. Most of the ideas that I share, most or all, I don't know, nothing's ever 100%, but I think 99% of the ideas I share, I did not come up with. They are from other traditions. I've studied a few of them in depth and many of them not in depth. So what I like to do is kind of boil them down for us to think about more or less as a group, and to make them a little more simple to understand than the way the texts offer them. The text can be confusing, and most of the texts are written with the idea that you would have a teacher explaining it anyway, so they're not very explanatory. So if you just kind of pick up a text, if you've ever done that, oh, I'm super into meditation, this yoga person told me to grab this text, and you pick it up, you know, often the text won't make any sense, and that's because it was sort of written in that way. It wasn't supposed to make sense. And then some great authors and translators have sort of written them in a new way that makes some sense. And then, of course, there's ones with commentary, which are great. But today, I wanted to kind of boil down this idea of reality a little bit. I think for most of us, if we're asked, you know, what is reality, you know, just walking down the street, someone stops you and says, what is reality? Unless you're feeling in a particularly philosophical mood, you know, it'd be an easy question to answer, right? You'd say, oh, this computer, the room I'm sitting in, people around me, people I know. And then if someone said, well, that's true, but there's also like a giant flying unicorn over there in the corner, you'd be like, wow, that person's a little like maybe ungrounded or untethered to reality, right? Because we have this like very fixed perception of what is and is not. But it just asks us to consider, what if there actually is, like, that person happens to be correct, and there happens to be a giant unicorn in the corner that we can't see because we're either too busy or too distracted or too sort of over focused on the people we know and the feelings we're feeling, etc. So this is the question we're kind of posing to ourselves today, and the reason is that the great seers and teachers have kind of taught us in all these various texts that we might be a little bit confused about what is real. The message is pretty consistent in all the yoga texts, and that message is that we don't see things the way they truly are. Our minds create a reality, each of us individually, and we identify with that reality, but we're missing a lot of important things. And the most important thing about that concept is that because of this, we suffer. So they wouldn't be talking about it except for the fact that people suffer. So they're kind of pointing this out in that light, like, you're suffering, and here's one of the reasons why. So if you're a person who can see everything in the room and see the unicorn, not only the unicorn, because that's not beneficial either, then you're going to be more free. And what the great teachers say is you're going to be more free because you're going to know the complete truth. And the truth, or a greater sense of reality, is the thing that sets us free and helps us suffer less. Because we can connect to the universe and all things more. So we basically experience more, and therefore we suffer less. Much of our anxiety is because we don't really see the full truth, and we keep trying to get more things, stuff, money, ideas, whatever, because our whole system is wired to kind of move towards this experience of full truth. So we feel when we're not seeing the unicorn, for instance, we feel like something's lacking. So we start to try to get stuff. We take these actions to try to kind of fill that void and change the situation. So usually we're not missing a unicorn, but like, we're missing other things. Like we could be in that same room and miss the love we have for the other people in the room. We could be in that same room and be missing parts of our own emotional experiences. We could be in that same room and be missing the fact that there's a part of us that's super content with the way things are, even though there's things going on in that room. So that's what they're trying to tell us. And there's basically two kind of main paths, although there's many offshoots. So, scholars like to talk about this forever, but we're going to talk about it for 8 seconds, just so we have it in our head. This. So in some traditions, people train themselves to see everything as illusion. And the word in Sanskrit is Maya. You might have heard that. And basically, it's a practice saying, oh, that computer is not greater awareness or God, if you like that word. You can interchange them for this particular conversation. So that's not God. The people aren't God. My thoughts aren't God. My body's not God. No, 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 no. I'm looking for this greater experience. And the reason this is useful is because it helps the practitioner not let the mind be fixed and not let the mind sort of fixate on what it thinks is reality. So basically, it stops us from being stuck. So that's a pretty popular method, actually, and it underpins a lot of, if you're into yoga and that's why you're here, sort of traditional yoga or yoga that was brought over by a lot of teachers that came to the United States for sure. That's kind of the underpinning of it, which is interesting because it is a very hard path for a householder, which basically means somebody who's living a regular life with family and job and, in the world in that way. You can imagine walking around and your kids get up in the morning and ask you where the breakfast is, and you say, you are not God, as your first, that's probably not going to work out so good. Or you go to work and your boss says, don't forget this thing. And you're like, nope, that's not real. So that's a difficult path for regular people, for lack of a better word. So in other traditions that are more tantric in nature, but there's non-dual paths in regular yoga, that's for another day. But in more non-dual paths, they see everything as reality. So everything is connected, and it's connected to consciousness in this greater sense of oneness. So the computer is the same as the thoughts, is the same as the awareness of your own prana, is the same as God consciousness, is the same as the unicorn. All the same, all one big thing that we're trying to be aware of. Nothing is separate and nothing is more or less useful on the path to greater awareness. So that's more the path we take here, because we're living in the world. It's more in line with our daily experience. And the goal would be to relax into our own awareness with the remembrance that there's always more, but what we're experiencing is enough. So that's part, when you say non-dual, the word dual is in there. So that's the dual part, right? Like we're relaxing to our experience. We're like, this is totally enough, but I'm definitely missing something at the same time. And it's tricky. It's hard for our minds to do both of those at the same time. So we seek to expand our awareness, but that can either be through new experiences or deeper, more present versions of the experiences we're having now. Either, or I would probably offer both are useful. So we're aware of all of our infinite possibilities, and our limits at the exact same time. And when we do this, we move towards a state or awareness, you could say, where nothing is a problem, even if we don't like it, or we choose to take steps to change it. We still don't actually have a problem. So that's the philosophical take. Even if you don't feel that way, it's an important input for the conscious mind to understand that there isn't really a problem. We're just making a bunch of choices, and that's fine. It's kind of easy in an absolute way, and it is not easy in a not absolute way. So, like all paths, it requires discipline. But discipline doesn't mean difficult. It more means that we're required to have some sort of plan or system in which to work with this. So here in this meditation course, we meditate, right? And we meditate regularly to help our minds be able to work towards this non-dual experience in general. And if we meditate consistently, we can have the experience of being aware of the computer, our own thoughts and feelings, and the unicorn all at once. And we become more free because we gain the ability to choose the primary focus of our awareness at any given time. So I'll say that again. We become free because we gain the ability to choose what we're aware of. So I'm looking at this computer screen and I'm focusing on you and talking about this subject right now, and it's a choice. But because my awareness is expanded from meditating, I can still see the unicorn out of the corner of my eye over there. But it is not distracting me so much I can't be here. That's the idea. So the point of practice from this perspective is to be able to have such a wide awareness that we can make choices instead of just having things happen to us. So that's one way to think about it. And from that freedom comes less anxiety. You could use the word, it's a little loaded, but we could use the word happiness. We become happier because we get to make choices instead of just being thrown into situations. We become more content. And it's easier for us to not get stuck. So we can bounce between our different, what might seem like realities, but it's really just different sets of awarenesses easily instead of fighting it. Last thing I'll say is when we gain like philosophical concepts, when you study it, all these things, you simply want them to kind of drop into your mind and then inform your thoughts. I'm not sure how useful it is to kind of ruminate or churn on them too much. So my experience over the years, I mean, I didn't start this way, but I've studied a lot of things, and I'm a big reader. I like to dig in, and that's certainly useful. But I do want to share that philosophical concepts, really the best part of them is that it loosens us up. So new ideas or different ideas or things from a different perspective helps the mind not get stuck. So if you never think about what I said again, that's fine. But what I'm hoping is that it just gets implanted there. The one idea that the reality that we believe to be true is probably not complete, because it's very difficult to see complete reality at any given time. And the mind knowing that makes it more of an ally in this kind of process and quest for greater evolution for ourselves.